Want your brand to be seen and be remembered? Effective campaigns need both. JCDecaux's high-quality billboard sites in premium locations nationwide offer brands powerful and visible stages for emotive, impactful and influential storytelling. Find out how JCDecaux can help your brand be seen and be remembered at www.beseenberemembered.co.nz. Nau mai, hoki mai, kia the fold, e mihi ne, ko Duncan Greive tōku ingoa. My guest today are Phil Eastwood, the GM of JCDecaux New Zealand, and Paul Maher, who is the head of the Out-of-Home Association and a former head of 3 and a veteran of senior roles in both media agencies and on the content side. And this episode is essentially just diving into out-of-home as a medium. It's alone amongst all of the kind of domestic media in that it has not just a growth story, but a very positive growth story. You know, as Paul says, it's up sort of 15% year on year, when the rest of the sort of content side of New Zealand media feels like it's battling for survival, that the technology companies which compete with it on screens are sort of winning that battle. And so in that way, it's quite a fun conversation where you're talking about opportunity and upside and, you know, what the good things that data can do. And it feels like that out-of-home just has this moat around it. Phil describes it as the last true broadcast channel, and that does feel intuitively true in the sense that when you're in a public space, all demographics are exposed to this medium. If you see some creative, whether it's on a bus shelter, a bus back, a large format digital billboard, you're all seeing it. So it has this sense of being both a national campaign that really does get to everyone and very locally oriented in that a specific site can be used to tell a particular story. So we sort of dig into the history of out-of-home, how it's gone from being the kind of the last picked medium to this very, very different story nowadays, the way media agencies are sort of starting to kind of view it, some of the problems that they have with creative, and the sense that it can feel where it falls down is because there isn't consideration given to what you can do with the medium or what you need to do to make use of it. And about the data side, intuitively it doesn't feel like it's a data-rich product versus the likes of search and social, but in fact, the investment that's been made there means that there is actually increasingly that's a big part of what they're doing. So yeah, this is a conversation about out-of-home that gets into the weeds a bit. Really enjoyed it. It's Phil Eastwood and Paul Maher on the fold. Phil Eastwood, Paul Maher, welcome to the fold.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Phil, I wonder if you could start with just giving me a bit of a précis of your career prior to joining JCDecaux as the NZ GM in 2023.
Yeah, I've got a pretty basic sort of history, to be honest, and I'm a bit of an out-of-home tragic, been in out-of-home now for over 25 years, majority of that, in fact all of that, being in the Australian market. I had the opportunity to work in both big organisations, being APN Outdoor, which is now JCDecaux, prior to the JCDecaux acquisition back in, I think that was back in 2018. And then I've worked for OOHMAA as well. In both of those companies, I was head of sales for both those organisations. So I've been involved at a senior level, I guess, for a number of years, but came through all the ranks. In my first job back in 1997 when I came from New Zealand across to Australia, and worked in a little company called Buspack, which is selling advertising on buses. So that was my introduction into out-of-home, and I sort of fell into that. I was over in New Zealand working in sales, but in the breweries here in DB Breweries back in the early 1900s. 1990s, so to speak. But yeah, look, and I've had the opportunity to also set up my own business, out-of-home businesses twice as well. So I set up a company where I had street furniture on the Gold Coast, where I won that from Agile with another partner that I went into partnership with, and then sold that back to actually Agile. And then I've set up another out-of-home digital billboard business prior to me joining JCDecaux, which is a company called Big Outdoor, which had 60-odd digital billboards across Queensland, and I ended up selling that one as well. So I've had the opportunity to be both working for a big media organisation, but also have the opportunity to be a media owner myself as well over the last sort of 30 years.
It's interesting, right? Like out of home didn't feel like, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way, but it didn't feel like a big part of the media industry. And for, when I was sort of coming up, it was very much kind of print and TV and radio were the story. And I think probably because of the sort of struggles of those industries, while out of home's been on a very different track, it now feels like the big domestic growth story. Why do you think it has been able to I guess forge a different path to the domestic media markets more broadly?
Yeah, look, it's been an interesting journey. As I say, I've been here right from the day dot, really, when out of home was really only starting to kick off. Although it's the oldest medium in the world, but it's sort of never really been taken that seriously. And as I said in my early days, we struggled to get an audience at all with anyone who wanted to be considering out of home as an option for their clients.
So who was that because media agencies just didn't pay attention? Were you more direct selling, or what was the kind of why was it on the fringes, do you think?
Well, back in those early days, absolutely. TV, the traditional media of yesterday, as I call them now, was very much the flavour, and out of home just didn't seem to have a voice. And we tried to infiltrate the media agencies, and they just wouldn't give us the time. I remember on a number of occasions being kicked out of agencies because I was wasting their agency people's time. Harold Mitchell kicked me out. John Singleton kicked me out.
It's good to name names.
Yeah, well, those guys are pretty big names in the industry. And so we actually ended up going, and this is, I guess, there's something that I'm still quite passionate about today. Because the agencies wouldn't give us an opportunity, we went direct to clients. And then we sold our wares to the clients and spoke about the benefits of what out of home, and traditionally back in those days, it was buses, what they did. And if we hadn't gone down that particular path, I don't believe Busback probably would have survived. And eventually the clients then started to take interest and then force the agencies to get involved with us. And that was the way we were able to start to penetrate into the market. And then from there, the rest of it is history. So, and I'm still a very, very big believer in having that relationship with clients, not necessarily going in with the order book, but we do that. We do have a fairly large part of our business today as a direct B2B business, but very much educating and working with clients to understand the way and what part out of home plays in the media landscape, more so today than ever. And again, most agencies do encourage us to do that now and understand that we are the experts and they aren't. Therefore, they sort of encourage us in consultation with themselves to go out there and educate clients about how out of home now plays a major part in their media mix. That wasn't necessarily always the case, but again, agencies are stretched. There are many, many different formats out there that they can't be experts at them all, and therefore we are very much at the disposal of the agencies, but very much pushing the agenda to get in front of clients and understand exactly what the client wants, so we can be more specific in regards to their responses.
It's interesting though, because if you look at SMI, out of home today is somewhere in the 18 to 20% share of agency budgets, right? So, it's a major part of what they do. In real terms, within the next few years, based on the current growth, it'll be bigger than TV. And so I think one of the things that's interesting is out of home spans so many formats that when you put it together, what we've really got to do is get the agencies to think about the whole ecosystem. I talk to a lot of advertisers and they still kind of think of out of home as billboards, digital billboards now, but it's much broader than that. And so we've got to try to find a way to get agencies and customers to understand that actually the out of home industry spans everything from retail through to the traditional kind of big formats. But, $1 in $20 of ad spend from agencies is spent with this medium. It's actually massive.
So, I mean, it's interesting hearing you talk about it overtaking TV when, you've spent such a big chunk of your career in that medium. Why do you think that their tracks have diverged or to the point where they'll cross over, which, I mean, when you were running 3, for example, that must have seemed like if someone had told you that was coming down the pipe, that would have seemed unimaginable.
Yeah. Yeah, well, things have changed, haven't they? The television audiences have declined at a rate that I think was faster, certainly faster than I thought, and faster than anyone expected. And the biggest challenge that advertisers have today is building reach. When I look at the out-of-home industry, out-of-home delivers reach really strongly on a national basis and also strongly on a local basis. So it delivers sort of both ends of the market. And I think the other thing that is part of the reason that the traditional media have lost share and audiences in their way is that the product is replaceable with digital platforms. So, you can take money out of TV and you can put it straight into YouTube, and many advertisers don't care. With out-of-home, you can't do that. The physical nature of out-of-home means that it cannot be replicated in any other digital platform. And so, I see the future of the out-of-home industry as incredibly positive in comparison to any other main New Zealand media. For that reason, we deliver what clients want, what they need in the current environment, and whilst we work well with the digital platforms, it can't be replicated.
I mean, it's interesting you say that, right? Because on some level, when you're imagining the sort of mix of different surfaces effectively that you can deliver a message on, a phone or a laptop versus some form of out of home infrastructure, they're all just in front of people's eyes. It does, and yes, there's a lot of inventory, which kind of helps hold down price digitally, but there's a similar kind of situation in out of home. But is there something about, and I'm sort of thinking about the sort of research piece here, is there something about the scale and the fact that everyone's seeing it with out of home that means people respond to it differently?
Yeah, look, as you rightly say, there's a varied number of different sizes of platforms within the out-of-home space, being small format, large format, and they all have their own place and their own sort of unique nuances, to be honest. And it's very unusual now for a client not to use multiple formats because they do work differently. So when you've got, the big, large format screens are very much around making impact and big announcements, where some of the smaller formats or some of the sort of walk-by mediums, which are sort of in airports or in retail, you can put a little bit more detail around the messaging that you're trying to get across to your consumer. So, the environment plays a big part. It's absolutely true in that regard. And the messaging that you put on the format in that environment is critical if you want to try and get the best outcome. But the simplicity of out-of-home is what makes it so effective. There's times when we overcomplicate things, and other channels are able to do that probably better than us. But as a true sense of what out-of-home can deliver, it's about getting 8 words out there in someone's mind that they can resonate with at the time when they need to make a call to action. And it's about driving that with reach, so getting mass audiences, and frequency drives so that message take out. So when you are in a position to react to the message, whether it be in a supermarket or when you're looking for a car, it's top of mind. And that's what out-of-home plays a big part of. And I think that's the beauty about it. And the sheer nature that out-of-home is an involuntary medium. You don't turn us off. You don't, switch
no
us.
ad blockers.
No blockers like that. And the fact that, New Zealanders traditionally are a nation of drivers. So we're out and about a lot, which is quite different to other countries. But in particular, New Zealand are a driving nation. And we spend a lot of time out of home. So, our audience is growing and it's continued to grow. And we don't have the same challenges that traditional media have had in regards to so many other digital platforms coming on, taking audiences away. And I have mentioned in a number of articles I've written before that we are sort of the last true broadcast medium. And I firmly believe that still is very much the case and is only becoming more relevant as time goes on because we can reach this mass audience quickly. No other medium can do that.
Yeah, and I think the thing is there's no channel that can deliver to a client now in isolation. And so we form a critical part of building brands. Equally, it's largely a digital medium, and we bring all the benefits of the data that we're actually collecting. And so we're sort of creating this model that is true broadcast, but also has all the benefits of a data-heavy kind of industry that enables this industry to kind of target people, reach them locally, reach them on the way to the activity that the brand is interested in them being in, whether that's purchasing or whatever it is. And so we have this kind of interesting kind of two-pronged benefit, I think, what you talk about, which is scale and size and building reach quickly. But then also at a really local level, we have the ability as a digital medium to actually kind of provide heavy data and over time links to other kind of forms of social media. And so everything sort of works within a nice sort of ecosystem.
I think that's a really, really good point Paul just made. Out-of-home historically was data poor. And it was always one of the things that held the growth of out-of-home back. We just didn't have enough data to actually ascertain exactly what it was able to deliver to a media schedule or to a client. Now we're data rich. We've got so much more data at our disposal. And the digital screens allow us to be able to use that data far more effectively than we've ever been able to do before. And, as Paul mentioned, we can go very much broad reach, but we can get very granular and we can actually look at certain assets that actually talk to a certain audience at a certain time. So we can really get quite targeted as well, which has been a big factor in our growth.
The data piece is interesting. As you say, it's counterintuitive in some respects. Most people just would assume that the billboard is out there, it's showing to whoever sees it, that's the end of the story. Can you talk about some of the things that you now know about audience within a location and about how you know them?
Yeah, look, there's many data sources out there at your disposal. We use a source that actually is driven off the back of the SKU codes on mobile phones, so we actually get to understand people's movements. So we engage with a company called LiveSite, and that has about 3.5 million of these devices that we can actually track. We don't actually get down to the granular level of who the person is, but we see people's travel movements and we see where they go and we can start to build a bit of a profile on that particular person. So then we can work out that if that person profile or lives in a certain area and drives down certain roads, goes to the airport, does certain things, we can sort of start to work out exactly who that person is, and then we can start to make sure that if we believe there's a vehicle, for instance, use that as an example, that they have a high socio-economic living, high earners, likelihood that they'll probably buy a BMW or a Mercedes or something like that, and they may have had a car for 3 years. That's likely that they'll be soon changing their vehicle. So we look to put panels in areas where these sorts of audiences are travelling past, so we can try and entice their thoughts around the next time they look to upgrade their motor vehicle, Mercedes or BMW, who it might be, will be top of mind because it's part of their travel habits.
I think the other thing with the uniqueness of the New Zealand market, which is so driven by the SMEs, so it's half the market still revenue is direct. One of the benefits of the ability to target on a sort of a geo-target sort of location base, and if you think about it, I mean, I don't know, I got in my car, drove from Takapuna today, I passed 1,000 billboards, buses, I passed, the street furniture. So that's the way the medium works. You think about applying that to New Plymouth, the opportunity for out-of-home is actually to also not only target the agency revenue, which we're doing really well with, but also target the direct SME market, which really is what's driving the success of the likes of Meta. It's so easy to put a campaign together if you're Joe's Butchery that targets just people in New Plymouth or Masterton. The out-of-home industry can do the same thing with both the locations they've got and the data that they provide.
The JCDecaux Billboard Network delivers quality reach via commanding sites to ensure your campaign is visible and impactful. With superior screen quality and premium locations, JCDecaux can help your campaign be seen and be remembered. Visit www.beseenberemembered.co.nz to learn more. The thing that's interesting about that, right, is that the story that Meta tells those clients is about the granular targeting and, no wasted dollars. Because, and, I think this is partly one of the beautiful things about out of home is it's a more fragmented, more competitive market than, social and search, which are much more monopolistic. Paul, you work for an umbrella organisation. How is that sort of ease of buying and working across multiple providers where they can both collaborate in the right places and compete in others? How is that piece sort of tracking from your perspective?
Well, I think we've got work to do on the direct side of the business. And so, we're I was just saying rudely successful, I think, in the current environment, growing at sort of 15% this year. But I think for any media in New Zealand to be successful, you've got to find ways to target local markets. My personal view is it's probably more working together with some of the social platforms. Talk about the way they measure their audiences. It's hard to tell, really, isn't it? Because they mark their own homework and you don't actually know what you're getting. But I had to say that.
No, it's true.
And out of home delivers you still all the kind of the brand safe kind of environments that any New Zealand media does. But I think advertisers are going to use a combination of media pretty much always. But to be able to tell, I was in Queenstown yesterday with a guy who's selling kind of advertising in local medical centres, and he was just saying, well, the benefit of his medium is it delivers only people who are local. Well, our medium delivers largely that too, and I think you want to reach people on the way to their activity, which will drive brand and return on investment. And then I think you want to link it probably to some other sort of platform solutions, search and a lesser amount of social.
So, Phil, this episode and the that we've got a partnership with JCDecaux. Tell me about the bigger business that the New Zealand office is a part of. About what the sort of I guess the secret sauce that makes JCD different from the sort of the competition, or because there's a scale there that is not common to the other parts of the competition, I suppose.
Yeah, look, the size of JCDecaux, the global business, as you may or may not be aware, is massive. We're in over 80 countries and 4,300 cities globally, and been around 60 years. So that comes a whole lot of great tools and knowledge and experiences that we can tap into globally, and we do that. And we have the ability to be able to, lean on our friends over in Asia and Europe and the likes. So we get a lot of learnings from that. But we also are very much a local business. So JCDecaux New Zealand is run by JCDecaux New Zealand. So we are able to run our own ship very independently. With the blessing of Jean-Francois Decaux, who comes over a couple of times a year and is very involved in the business as well. But the beauty about our business is it's driven from the fact that it's trying to make public spaces more enhanced public spaces, and that was what JCDecaux started from when it started back 60 years ago when Jean-Francois went to Lyon bus shelters and said, I want to build the bus shelters and allow the commuter to be able to have a dry, safe space while they're waiting for a bus to turn up. But for that, I want to be able to put some advertising on it. So everything at the heart of what JCDecaux do is about trying to make the public spaces enhance it. And that's still very much part of the DNA with JCDecaux. And everything they do is quality. So, and they're known globally as quality. So when you look around New Zealand in particular, our assets are the best built, high-end screens. Everything we do is high-end. So I think that differentiates us a little bit from our competitors, and we're in the best locations with the best tech and I believe with the best people. So we try and be the leading edge of the out-of-home industry and set standards for everyone else to try and compete to. We try to be the trusted advisor, and that's something we try and do well, and we work really closely with our partners in the agencies, and we do that across the board, both New Zealand, Australia and our other markets. So we see agencies and clients as partners, and we work together to try and get mutual benefits. And I think that's something that's going to set us in good stead. It has set us in good stead, and we'll continue to do that. And we just want to grow the industry. So we're all about making sure that what we do is sustainable, but absolutely and taking the industry forward. There's still a huge amount of growth, and we want to lead that growth globally, but very much so in New Zealand as well. Now, whether that be through just organic growth, whether that be through acquisitions or mergers, that's what the business globally is looking to do always, and continue to grow and better the industry for all.
So in some of the pieces you've written, which can be quite outspoken in terms of the message you're laying down, there has been a thread that media agencies are slow to add out of home, like they're sort of followers of the growth that's happening rather than leaders of it, or even kind of keeping pace. At least that was a sort of a message from in the past couple of years. Is that starting to change? And why do you think that the direct space is I guess has been more fertile ground than the media agency area?
Look, I think it's certainly changed. I did write that, and I must say I've only been here a couple of years. And when I did first arrive on the shores and spoke to a lot of media people, they sort of never spoke about out of home being a reach and frequency medium, which sort of blew me away a bit, to be honest, because that's exactly what it is. So that was something I was quite passionate about, and again, that's what we're about. It's a medium with great reach and delivers great results when you get the right amount of frequency, depending upon the format you're on. As Paul mentioned before, 15% growth, and we had a similar number last year as well. It looks like they're leaning in well here in New Zealand now, and that growth is tremendous. I just generally believe that as the medium now is far more accountable. The planning tools we have now gives agencies and clients a lot more confidence in what they're booking and what they're getting in return for the money that they're spending on the channel. And that's only going to bode well for agencies to be far more confident and clients far more confident to put their money into the out-of-home space. And that's continuing to grow, and out-of-home is developing, certainly in New Zealand, about to launch an upgraded audience measurement system, which is going to be unified across all out-of-home. So once again, we are all as one. And I think that'll be a tremendous movement forward for the industry, where we're all talking the same language around impressions, reach and frequency. We're all singing from the same hymn book. So I think that's going to be a step change in growth as well. And I think that'll continue to allow us to have double-digit growth into the years to come.
Paul, the majority of your career you spent in commercially driven businesses, but businesses which were predominantly content businesses with the advertising or the commercial kind of piggybacking off the attention that the content generated. It's always struck me that out of home, particularly in the sort of digital era, like people say, one of the great things is you don't have a cost of content, which is true. But now there is more and more the potential for content. You see people making small plays there. I just wondered if you see that as a sort of a red herring, or if there is an opportunity to start to kind of use some of the inventory to make content plays that generate attention for the medium beyond as an ad surface, and then ultimately kind of raise the sort of profile or increase the way that people kind of think more broadly or creatively about what they can do with the new digital surfaces in particular.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see kind of heavy content or content plays as a significant part of the total out-of-home industry. I mean, it's the way it works is people are passing sites. In some environments they're stopping, and so there are environments where that creates some opportunity for content. But I personally don't think I see it as a content heavy industry.
There's issues in regards to legislation as well. So as much as we'd love to have more content on the screens, we can't. The government won't allow us to have movement on billboards on the roadside. So the only environment you can actually have any movement on a screen, apart from obviously the screen's changing, are in environments that aren't roadside. So some of the shopping centres, for instance, and some of our assets at JCDecaux and the airports, we can run live dynamic creative, but outside of that, not an option.
I mean, I spent, you say I sort of worked in content business, and I spent 20 years in agencies kind of as a buyer of kind of media. And I think the basic needs actually haven't actually changed, right? So you need media that delivers the performance to build return on investment for customers. You need environments that are engaging and increasingly brand safe. And you need to build using an omni-channel kind of approach, which, all agencies now do. You need to understand the role that each media plays. And I think that's one of the biggest opportunities, I think, for out of home, is for us to do a better job of educating customers, agencies and advertisers, on how the medium works in total, so across different asset types, across different platforms. For us, it's a big move to bring this new measurement service to market, because that enables an advertiser and an agency to look across the different platforms and understand what we're truly delivering. And then I think we've got more work to do to prove kind of the role we play in terms of return on investment. So we're doing really well, and certainly I think we're all pleased with the growth we're seeing and the support we're getting from agencies. But I think we're also needing to behave more like a 20% media channel and do more work on proving kind of the contribution we play in terms of the New Zealand media market.
Is there a particular campaign or a case study, like someone who's used the medium in a way where you've sort of gone, oh, that's a marker of where we should be going? If we can get more people conceiving us in this way, then that's where the kind of the magic and the future of the business lies?
Oh, look, there's over the years, there's been some amazing campaigns that have run on out of home. There's a few that come to mind, but the key factor is that it's a pretty simple medium, and you've got to keep it that way. And I think what frustrates me still to this day is the fact that we still don't treat the medium in its uniqueness, and we quite often treat it as a side medium when it comes to creative messaging. And you quite often still drive down the road and look at a street furniture panel that's got a magazine out, and you just scratch your head and go, why? That's just not going to cut through. So there's some pretty simple rules around trying to make sure you get the best from your out-of-home campaign, but the simplicity of making it clean, clear and concise with, certain products, certain messages, certain brands, putting them in different locations to get the best outcome is still very, very key. So you can have the biggest and the heaviest weighted campaign out there in New Zealand, but if you don't put effective creative on it, it'll never work. It doesn't matter how you look at it. So I still think the creative component of it is still critically important. I think the one at the moment that I just see around, which I absolutely love, is actually, funny enough, the Stylager campaign that just sits out there, and it's just pure nature of what it is, the green bottle, the bubbles, and Stylager. It doesn't get much better than that in terms of, the look, the appeal, and the simplicity of it. More campaigns like that, and then and that's part of an omni-channel buy as well. There's other facets that they're doing, but it all sort of comes together as one, and I'm sure that'll be a really effective campaign. And Paul mentioned before, it's how out of home fits within the media landscape. We can very muchly deliver a great result just out of home on its own, but it does lend itself to work really, really well with digital and traditional media as well. You get the three right together, perfect. But don't try and put a one-to-one ad on a one-to-many platform. It just doesn't work because it's got different ways of consuming it.
I was going to raise Stylager, and I'm biased, right, because my wife's the CMO of Lion, so disclaimer. But I mean, the thing I really like about that campaign is there's a thumb going across the condensation on the bottle, and I see it a lot in airports, and just that brand trigger, which shows freshness and taste, and it's just a beautiful way to use the medium in that particular environment. So I'm captured at standing waiting for my bag I got Jetstar. I was waiting for about 20 minutes the other day, but I'm waiting, and literally I'm just looking at that ad, and I just never get sick of seeing the little thumb going across the Steinlager. I mean, it's partially a passion point, probably drinking Steinlager, but again, I think you're right. It's educating the industry to understand the role that the channel plays, but also the importance that the creative has, and don't just slap your end frame from the TV ad on it, because just, you're not getting the most out of it.
I mean, that's quite a beautiful place to end it. We've talked a lot about the media side, but the creative end has to play ball too. And I think that sense of an industry that has gone from its North Star being television to now increasingly out of home has to be considered alongside it, if not ahead of it, in terms of the broadcast medium reach. It's a good kind of challenge to that piece of the industry too. Thanks both so much for coming up, and fascinating and good for in a podcast that often dwells on the things that are hard and feel unsolvable, to have this piece that is unabashedly growing.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing is not enough. With optimized data tools and insights, the JCDecaux Billboard Network helps brands be remembered. Dedicated to closing the loop between impression and action, JCDecaux can help your campaign be seen and be remembered. Visit www.beseenberemembered.co.nz to learn more.